My name's Arjun. I'm the managing editor at Leaders League, and I'll be co-hosting this presentation. Alexandra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I think I know many of the people in this call from my time at Let's or my time at Euromoney. So I am one of the founding partners of Let's Americas. And I'm really excited everyone came. Arjun and I really wanted to create something that was a bit more casual, a bit more fun, since we know that webinars are everyone's lives now. And we just wanted to create a different platform to talk about rankings, talk about legal marketing, and really have this opportunity to answer all of your questions together. So please, Arjun and I are going to start talking to one another, and I have some interview questions for him and vice versa, but please feel free at any time to raise your hand, ask us a chat in the chat box. We can pause, answer, and then at the end, we'll definitely have some time to have a Q&A. But we are curious to know if anyone actually brought a festive drink. I have a cute mug from Colorado.
Got mine from Portugal.
Mine isn't festive, but I brought my coffee as well.
Very good. All right, Alexandra, shall we kick off?
Sure.
All right, let me just start sharing my screen. We've got some visual prompts, so in case anyone joins late, they can see what exactly we're talking about. I'm just going to share that screen with everyone now. Okay, can everyone see that screen? Alexandra, can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, on with the first question.
Great. So first off, I know that we at Let's Americas are very familiar with Leaders League, but I do think we might have some people on the call who are not completely familiar, or maybe they know any of the names. So I'd love to just ask you a little bit, about Leaders League and kind of what makes it different from all the other legal media publications on the market.
Sure. Well, I guess we can break down our differences, our distinguishing features into three main categories. The first being our staff, the second being our research, and the third being our coverage. So let's start with our staff. Now, unlike some of the other directories where researchers are often quite young college graduates in their early 20s, we field a lot of pretty experienced researchers, and some of these are former lawyers. Some of these are former editors at the Legal 500 and Chambers and Partners. I am one of those. I used to be an editor at the Legal 500. And other trade publications as well. Our research staff speak a range of languages, so we can do research in the market's native language, which is always proved popular, which then leads me on to talking about research. Now, what makes us different here? Well, we proudly emphasize our reporting, on-the-ground reporting, which is either in permanent offices on the ground, so in Paris, in London, where I'm based, Madrid, Lima, Sao Paulo, or via regular research trips to the relevant countries. So I every so often pop over to the US multiple times a year in previous years and do some research by speaking to lawyers directly, and not just lawyers, consulting firms, litigation funders, all that kind of thing. Our research staff speak a range of languages, so we can do research in the market's native language. Hang on, that's a repeated cue card there, sorry. We publish our rankings in 5 different languages, so that's English, French, German, Spanish, and Portuguese, which is really great for our SEO. General counsel look for international legal counsel in their own native language. So if you're Brazilian and you're looking for the best law firms, you're not necessarily going to type in English. You're not necessarily going to type in French. You'll type in your own native language, which is great, which means our rankings show up quite high on Google when people type in any of those 5 languages. So the third thing that makes us different from other directories is the breadth of our coverage. Now, we map entire business ecosystems in our rankings, from law to consulting to finance. And crucially, we act as a bridge between professions and professionals through both our intelligence reports, which is where you can find our rankings, and our flagship international events. We also keep a pretty beady eye on the legal media, and we frequently publish independent news coverage. So we are basically on top of trends, developments, and changes, which means that we can incorporate live market developments into our rankings. So again, this is slightly different from the other directories who tend to update their rankings once a year. We tend to be a lot more reactive. If there's a major change to a team, if let's say your firm experiences an influx of partners from another big firm, just let us know. If we haven't already spotted it, which we may which we may well have done. If you let us know, we can pretty much hop to setting up a call, finding out some of the details about who's joined, grilling those partners, and again, getting some written information from you. And if we deem it appropriate, we can amend the rankings very, very soon after that change. Again, if we think it's appropriate and once we've done that due diligence. But again, it means you don't necessarily have to wait a year for rankings to be updated. So those are some of the distinguishing features.
Oh, fantastic. And it's great to know that people don't have to keep waiting. I think that's one of the comments that I used to hear when I was at Your Money, that people wanted things that were a bit more live and of the moment versus just every year. And kind of speaking, in the same vein, what does a firm have to do if they want to get ranked by Leaders League? What is the submission process like? Interview process, client referees?
Okay. So in some ways, if you work at a firm, you've probably come across other directories like Legal 500 and Chambers and Partners, and our research process isn't a completely different kettle of fish. We invite editorial submissions, which we then process pretty rigorously. We then speak to practice heads or senior partners to get a better view of the practice and get their opinions on our rankings. And we bolster that, of course, with client feedback and peer feedback. You can submit clients as part of your submission. So we do have our own bespoke submission forms, which are different and I'd like to think simpler and easier to fill out than some of the existing submission form templates. But we do also accept submissions compiled for the Legal 500 and Chambers and Partners, because we know how swamped BD people are, especially in a year like this when everything is so hectic, you've got a lot on your plates. Ultimately, the important thing for us is to have a written record of a firm's performance. And so if you don't have time to fill in the submission forms that we've created, we do accept submission forms that you've done for other directories. So we are flexible like that. It's also worth pointing out that all editorial content we receive in submissions or in interviews is kept highly confidential. We take confidentiality very seriously. And so any information that you entrust us with does not go beyond our research team. We actually have a list of do's and don'ts when it comes to submissions, which you can see actually on this link. I've shortened it for you, but it should take you actually to Let's America site where an interview with me where I discuss some of the do's and don'ts of submitting to Leaders League in detail are published. So that's shorturl.at/FX_D_F0.
Perfect. And so Arjun, to follow up, how important is it that a new firm that isn't yet ranked with Leaders League includes an interview?
How important are interviews in the process? I'd say they're important. You can send us a submission, and on the strength of the submission, if we've got your written material and also good client or good peer feedback from the market, then there have been cases where we include firms without having interviewed their partners, or in some cases, probably more often vice versa. If we interview partners but haven't got a submission, again, what we need is feedback from clients, feedback from peers that helps us go into this process of generally building up market knowledge. But the more information you give us, the better sense we get of your practice, and so the better chances you have of getting your firm ranked, and also the better chance you have of getting feedback on your ranking. So for example, if you look at your placement in a given year and think, well, that's weird, I'm ranked far too low. If you've given us a submission and interview, we can be perfectly transparent and accountable. We can say, look, here's how your submission compares to some of the others we've received. Here's what you might have done to perform slightly better in our rankings, and here's what some of the other firms were doing, which is where you might have fallen short. And so that's proven to be basically an important way of building and sustaining relationships with law firms, being transparent and giving feedback where it's requested.
Awesome, thank you. So one of the next questions came up a lot when I was working at Your Money. There was always this idea that if you're ranked in one publication, you're ranked in them all. And so I really just want to know, if a law firm is ranked in Chambers, Legal 500, by Your Money, does this guarantee that they'll be ranked in Leaders League?
So it's a good question. There is likely to be some overlap, especially since some of our staff, including myself, came from the Legal 500 or Chambers and Partners, where we researched the US market for years, which therefore means that we brought the knowledge of our market, brought our knowledge of the market with us. In some cases, our rankings contain fewer firms than the Legal 500 or Chambers, but in other cases, our rankings contain far more firms. Specifically, Latin America, some of our tables are full to bursting with firms. And in the US as well, not only do we have some large tables, but we also have certain completely unique rankings. Our investment treaty arbitration ranking, for example, is not something that you'd find in the Legal 500 or, I believe, Chambers and Partners. And so that's something where, you obviously don't, it's not applicable to be ranked in another directory because we've got that unique ranking. You can also request rankings or contact us about rankings that we don't yet have, but you think we should have. We're open to new ideas and want to reflect the market as accurately, but also as dynamically and excitingly as possible. And if that's a ranking that the Legal 500 and Chambers don't even have yet, then we're open to it. If we think that there's a kind of appetite for it and that enough firms are handling this kind of work, we want to be dynamic and reflecting that shift in the legal market. We're also constantly bringing out new rankings, including unique ones, again, that you won't find elsewhere. Our proxy solicitation firm rankings, for example, which, as some of you may know, again, that might be a slightly market-specific thing, but in the US, proxy solicitation firms are firms that specialize in correlating shareholder voices and instrumental in holding shareholder campaigns for things like M&A. They can kind of agitate for M&A, or they can agitate against M&A, or for and against certain shareholder decisions. That's a whole big industry in the US, but it didn't really get a particularly full mapping, so we created a ranking for it. We also, more recently in the US, especially given the kind of chaos that coronavirus has brought on the legal market and, well, on markets in general, there has been a spate of restructurings, large-scale restructurings, and so we introduced an investment bank ranking, and a ranking of best investment banks specifically for restructuring. Again, not something that you could find easily elsewhere, but somewhere where we're kind of like see ourselves as ahead of the curve. So these are some of the non-law firm examples, but also there are examples of law firm rankings where just because you're not ranked by the other two does not mean that we won't rank you. And I suppose vice versa too.
That's great to know that Leaders League is dynamic and open to new rankings, and is trying to most accurately express what's going on in the market. In the Q&A after this, we would love to hear, I guess, comments, thoughts on what ranking tables Leaders League might want to include next year. So Arjun, stay ready. So with Let's Americas, most of our current client base is based in Latin America right now. But obviously we know you're based in, you cover the US and Canada markets. I, of course, am based in New York. What are you noticing are the main differences between the way rankings are perceived in the US and Canada and in Latin America?
Again, great question. For one thing, it's worth clarifying that it's not necessarily the rankings themselves that are appreciated, it's the research that goes into those rankings. The rankings are the product of the research, but ultimately what's appreciated by law firms is when a company does rigorous research that is sort of on the ground in the specific countries where those markets are. So that's why we have such a strong presence in Brazil and in Latin America more widely, where we have offices in Sao Paulo, Rio, Lima. We don't yet have an office in New York or in America, but we do regular trips there. So, for example, I've done multiple trips to New York. Other people in the team have also taken trips to the West Coast, rather, to California. And for another thing, until recently, for obvious reasons, we've had an annual event in New York City, which is called ILASA, the International Legal Alliance Summit and Awards. Last time we had it was in a great location overlooking Central Park. Loads of people came, top law firms, consulting firms, investors. So there is interest, certainly in North America, especially when we're present in person. I think that's an important distinction to make. We do hope one day to have an office in the US, but for now we are we are kind of getting engagement in person. So anyway, to bring things back to your question, both the US and Latin America appreciate an in-person presence when it comes to research. I would say though that there are some differences. In the US, for example, you can feel directory fatigue, as it's sometimes known, a bit more keenly. I observed this even when I was at the Legal 500, and I'd say it's our main challenge. How do we add value to the US legal market while also not adding to firms' workload? Well, this is why we make lives easier by accepting submissions that you've already done, for example, for other directories. Why our referee process is perhaps less onerous than other directories. We ask you for your top referees rather than asking for many different referees and then bombarding your entire contact list for feedback. We know that referee and client fatigue of directories is a problem as well as it is for BD and marketing departments. And it's also a reason why we position ourselves differently. We're not just a mirror of the legal market, we're a bridge between the legal market and other professions and other service providers. And so in that sense, that's really how we're trying to position ourselves, both in the US and Latin America, to kind of avoid that kind of directory fatigue. We do see ourselves as something different. Another factor, I suppose, an interesting one, is that the major firms in Latin America, some of the major firms, are often younger than the age-old institutions in North America. In Latin America, new firms are always popping up. It's a very dynamic market. And legal directories are often seen as a useful tool, kind of instantaneous reputation, if you will, in building a strong profile, which allows you to stand out. Because when you're not 100 years old as a firm and you're relatively new, you have to work really hard on being considered the best at what you do, and your reputation still needs to be consolidated. And so accurate rankings from an independent directory are a way to do just that.
Awesome, thank you. Just a few more questions. This has all been amazing so far. But now kind of going to a bit more of the commercial side of Leaders League. When a firm is ranked and they want to become more engaged with Leaders League and really use it to further promote themselves, include a profile, include articles, what does that package look like, or that commercial relationship between a law firm and Leaders League? And what are kind of the main benefits that one would get?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a brief summary, since I am an editor rather than the head of any commercial unit of Leaders League, but I can give you a kind of rough rundown of what kind of things clients get. So for one thing, similar to other directories, you get profiles, both in our guides and online. We still do print guides, which we think is still useful at big events, for example, at the IBA annual conference. The last edition of that conference was in Seoul in North Korea, and we were there. We had a lot of guides that were picked up by a lot of lawyers and that proved very popular. And so we think that giving up on the print presence completely may have its disadvantages. So both in print and online, you can take out profiles that you can write yourself, and these are, I should stress, completely separate from the rankings. Another thing that you get is more extensive news coverage and in some cases exclusive interviews, which again are published both online and in our guides. So these interviews are kind of positioned as thought leadership interviews. If you have a senior partner at a firm and you're a client of ours that has something interesting to say, something exciting to say, and that would like a platform with a large readership to view it, then clienthood is certainly an advantage. Our webpage gets 170 to 250,000 page views every month. About 40% of that comprises C-suite executives, so CEOs, CFOs, and other members of the C-suite. And our LinkedIn page gets about 350,000 views a month, and we have about 10,000 followers. So sorry for bombarding you with numbers, but that's just to illustrate what kind of reach you'd be enjoying if you were to become a client of ours. Newsletters, we also have newsletters that go out to 25,000 people. And so if you would write an article or do an interview, that is another channel of dissemination. Another form of clienthood, again, I can put you in touch with relevant people if you're interested in the commercial side, but I'm just an editor, so I'm just speaking kind of in relatively general terms. But you can also sponsor our events. which, as I mentioned, can take place around the world. We've got some in Latin America. We've got events in New York, and we've got events mostly in Paris. These international events can be, you can take out sponsorships there. They regularly have over 1,000 people attending, often from top-level financial and legal institutions. And so you can take out speakerships, and it would give you a say in kind of hosting expert panels. So that's some of the ways to get involved commercially. If you are interested, I can put you in touch with the right people. But like I said, I'm more on the editorial side of things.
No, amazing. And I know that there's always that separation between editorial and sales. I have, from my sales time at Euromoney, I know they're always totally different, which is great, and but further promotes the integrity of the research, definitely.
Yes.
I just have two more quick questions before, we'd let you take a break and have a drink of water and relax a bit. But we obviously know that there are a ton of different rankings with Leaders League, and there are so many deadlines. What are kind of the upcoming deadlines? What are the main dates that people should keep in mind, to keep track of all the different rankings, all the different deadlines?
So the current ongoing research cycle is for litigation and arbitration, and for human capital and labor law. Now, these deadlines have actually already passed, but I'm happy to accept US submissions and interviews. Again, I'm speaking for the US here, until the end of the year. And if you're pushed for time, you can send in submissions compiled for other directories. But certainly I'd be keen to interview any practice heads that you can put me in touch with between now and the end of the year. You might be wondering, how do I know these deadlines? Often, we have quite a good database of contacts. We often email firms directly at the beginning of each research cycle, but we also hope in our revamped website, which will hopefully go live at some point next year, to have a kind of more transparent page dedicated to this kind of thing, with information about our schedules, our deadlines, our methodology, that kind of thing. For now, these are the deadlines for the upcoming guides, and our IP guide, which is the next one, the next research cycle to be undertaken. The deadline for submitting there is Friday, the 26th of February.
And Arjun, just to confirm, these deadlines are for just US or for everyone?
I'm just speaking for the US. I know that the Friday, 26th of February is pretty much worldwide. It's not yet 100% confirmed for other jurisdictions, but I can speak for the US that I'm happy to accept submissions until then, and it may be subject to extension, though again, it's a bit too early to tell at this stage, but that's the current deadline.
Great, because I think we have some IP attorneys on this call, so just wanted to make sure.
Great. I should also say that, so this actually is most of our cycles. One cycle is litigation, which usually takes place around the wintertime. The litigation, arbitration, it also includes competition or antitrust, insurance, and there's also a separate labor guide that deals with human capital, labor and employment, that sort of thing. The second major cycle is IP, which takes place in the spring, and that covers both patents and trademarks, and copyright and various other forms of IP too, but mostly patents, trademarks and copyright. And the third one, which takes place in the summer, is finance, restructuring and tax, and transactions and deals. So those are kind of two twin guides. We've actually just finished wrapping them up, and we should be launching the 2020 versions, covering the rankings of the year just gone, very shortly before the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled for those.
Great, thank you. I'm sure everyone's very excited to see the new rankings at the end of the year. And just kind of to conclude and wrap things up, since the life cycle at Leaders League is such a living, breathing process, what is the best way to stay in touch with the Leaders League team to continuously keep people the editors involved, informed of what's going on at the firm?
Mm-hmm. So we're always keen for firms to get in touch with us, to keep us posted with updates and developments. If you're a client, like I mentioned, you get sort of extra news coverage, which means that even if there's not like an earth-shaking move at your firm, we're more likely to cover it. We probably will cover it. But if you're not a client, still feel free to get in touch. Even if, let's say, for example, you're an IP team and you're at a firm that's currently ranked in tier 3 or tier 4 or tier 2 or anywhere really, and you've just nabbed a great IP team from another from a big competitor of yours, get in touch, even if it's not in our particular research cycle, because if it's a big enough change, we want to be alert to it, we want to respond to it, and if it's big enough, we'll cover it as news, regardless of whether you're a client or not. But it might also have a material difference on the rankings. So again, we'll do our due diligence, we'll ask you for some kind of written materials, we will interview the partners concerned, and we will kind of get some market feedback as well. But ultimately, like I mentioned earlier, it might mean that you get promoted in our rankings 6 months earlier than you would if you waited. So we're always open to market updates. And if it's particularly interesting, even if it's not necessarily something that will affect the rankings, if we think it's interesting enough, we'll publish it as news and we'll share it on our networks, that kind of thing. I've put here 3 contacts for the Americas. I'm the contact for the USA. It should say USA and Canada, actually, though I have to say at this point, I spend much more of my time on the USA. Brazil, our contact is Francois Legrand, who some of you may know. And Latin America, our contact is Handira Salgado. Again, these 2 names will be probably quite well known to many of you. So that's how to stay in touch. You can see the email addresses there. And if you want to get in touch with any of our commercial teams, we can direct you to the appropriate person.
Thank you so much, Arjun. I think that was really helpful, really insightful. And I know a key takeaway is just keep emailing Arjun with news so that he publishes it.
Exactly. Okay, so I'd like to turn the spotlight now. Feel free to get a drink for a minute or so if you'd like to stop listening to my voice dribbling on. I know I'm certainly getting tired of my voice, so I'm just going to have a drink for 5 seconds.
No, please do. In the meantime, before we move, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? Please raise hand if you want to comment or share something.
Okay. By the way, some of you are on mute, so you might have to unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask a question. In the meantime, it's come to my attention that the link that I posted containing some of the do's and don'ts of submitting to Leaders League does not work. So I'm going to post it in the chat, and in a follow-up email, we can also include the link, but I'll post it in the chat in its full length now. If you just give me 1 moment. Okay, while I do that, I'm going to start asking Alexandra some questions. So Alexandra, thank you for co-hosting this with me. Do you want to give us an overview of Let's Americas and what makes you different from other consulting agencies?
Sure. Thank you, Arjun. I'm happy to be in the hot seat now. Take the pressure off you. First off, thank you so much to everyone who's on this call right now. It's been a really exciting ride to get here. As I mentioned before, my 2 co-founding partners are in the call, Amanda and Raphael, and we are just so thrilled to have brought Let's to life. It's really a dream come true. So we were founded in September, just this year. We came out of COVID. And our goal is to be a full service legal marketing consulting firm. We want to handle all of your marketing, business development, communication needs. We want to be that extension of your team that can just take care of anything for you that you need related to these sectors. We have a team between New York and Brazil. It's me here in New York, but then we have Amanda and Raphael in Brazil, and the whole team of Let's Marketing that also has been around for 3 years and has a really close relationship between itself and Let's America. So we're pretty robust. We have a ton of designers, PR professionals, business development professionals. We're young, energetic, and ready to take on anything that you throw our way. I have a very personal connection with Amanda mostly. When I worked at Euromoney, she represented like 20 clients, I feel like, that I worked with. So we were on the phone, email all the time. And I was just so impressed by their work, by their dedication to their clients, and really to just the enthusiasm that they had to to promote their clients, to make sure they got well ranked, to make sure that they were participating in submissions, participating in articles. And I was so just enchanted by the way they did everything, that I knew that I wanted to work with them and I wanted to create something with them. So we're now, we're here and we're ready to work with any firm that needs marketing assistance.
Okay. Thanks, Alexandra. So to move more generally, to ask a more general question, what would you say are the advantages of using an external marketing consultant rather than an in-house team?
Of course. So, first off, our goal is never to replace anything that already exists. We know that many firms already have strong marketing teams or marketing professionals that are already part of their business. But what we see ourselves as just an additional set of arms and legs that you can't get from one individual person. When you work with Let's, you get, 12 people all helping you as just kind of as one other partner. To create internally the type of robust team that Let's Americas has, you would need to have 12, 13 people on staff. That means 12, 13 people on payroll, taking days off, working on different things, training. But when you work with us, you already have a team that's committed, has all the know-how, and is just dedicated to getting those projects done. So I think that's the real main benefit. The other thing is, I guess the other thing that really helps is that because we're working with so many firms, we have such a know-how and insights into the legal marketing world. We know what our other clients are doing. We know what other firms are doing. So we can share all of that knowledge to make sure that our clients are really in the know and in staying up to date, being the most innovative, attending the right conferences, publishing in the right places, in a way that one person in-house wouldn't be able to have access to. Yeah, we see ourselves as kind of this giant conglomerate of a lot of marketing experts that we just kind of morphed into one little robot of Let's Americas that can just do everything.
Okay, thanks, Alexandra. It's something that you might be well positioned to answer, since I know that you're very digitally savvy, and that as a relatively new marketing agency, it's something you need to be on top of. Have you seen any interesting changes in the digital marketing landscape in the legal sector recently? And do you have any predictions for 2021, how the legal marketing, especially in the digital space, might change?
Of course. And we've seen that 2021 has been a big wake-up call to a lot of firms that the future is digital. And while I don't think that digital life will ever replace shaking of a hand and doing business over in person, we are seeing that firms are becoming more tech savvy. Everyone's learning how to use Zoom. Virtual webinars are becoming the norm, and we think that's going to continue into 2021, even as in-person events are still happening. We're also seeing that there is a much more dependence to have a strong digital marketing plan, to have better websites, to be more active on social media. LinkedIn is blowing up. It is super hot right now. And also just having websites that are more easily accessible, having tools to do automatic calendar scheduling, to have payments being made online, to just kind of come up with ways to make things as easy as possible for clients so that you don't have so much human interaction, unfortunately, but really to kind of just make things easy and convenient. And that's what we're really seeing. This world is so crazy. People want everything to be done as simple as possible. We also see that kind of moving away from just digital marketing, firms are also looking to kind of reshape the way that they are known within the market. Firms are becoming a lot more focused on their own brand, storytelling, creating the brand, creating a different identity, because we see that law firms are kind of morphing a bit into the way that major corporations are structured, or financial institutions, banks, with that brand, with that instead of just being about like a few partners, but really focusing on like, who is this firm? What are the values of the firm? What is the mission? And I think we're going to see that change grow a lot more in 2021.
Okay, thanks, Alexandra. So that pretty much concludes this section of the event. So again, thanks everyone for attending. We do have time now for Q&As. I'd like to start with a Q&A that was actually submitted in advance. It was a multiplicity of questions, some of which were very interesting, including, do you, Alexandra and Arjun, like what you do as consultants? Does it make you happy? I can certainly say that research does make me happy and editing does make me happy. And I think Alexandra very much enjoys her job as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alexandra?
No, I love it. Honestly, it's a dream come true to be here right now. Yeah, I mean, on a personal note, when I was with Money for the past 3 years, I worked with International Tax Review, IFLR, and managing IP. And honestly, I loved all of our clients. For me, it was such a joy to get to work with them, to help them do their rankings, do articles, to meet them at conferences, to do client visits. And for me, Let's Americas is just a way to get to work even more closely with these people and to really take the relationships that I already had and build on them and create better, more structured solutions for all these people who I've already just really come to respect and admire. And so I mean, I'm so happy. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, honestly.
One of the other questions was, Alexandra, maybe you'd be well positioned to answer this. I think you've touched on it already, but you might have additional insights. The question is, in addition to legal rankings, what else does legal marketing do?
Everything, everything. I mean, rankings are important, but they are just one small component. It is everything from designing a business development plan, doing research on markets, finding out who competitors are, creating email campaigns, creating LinkedIn campaigns, creating bios, hosting webinars, attending networking events, hosting events. It's so broad. Honestly, it's everything that gets your brand out there and develops your brand and your reputation and connects you with people. So for us, it's all about networking, communication, and of course, visuals. We are proud to have a really strong network. We know a lot of people, which is great. We're connectors. We have a fantastic graphic design team. I think a bunch of our team members are actually on this call. And then we're communicators, really. It's our job to really share with the world, the news of the firms, the news of the brand, news about the partners. But yeah, it's everything. We live and breathe legal marketing, so.
Thanks, Alexandra. Another question has come in. Law firms are including additional products as a value add to their counsel. What sort of services do you offer to make it easier for law firms to source data and other services for their clients? So I'll speak on behalf of Leaders League here. I'd say one of the main value adds for us for law firms is our events. Now, obviously, right now, our events have taken a hit, just like all other event organizers around the world. But it was and will continue to be one of our flagship strengths in terms of the value that we add to the legal marketplace. We, like I said, try to act not just as a mirror for the legal profession, but also as a bridge between law firms and service providers, law firms and clients, service providers and clients, and also more generally law and finance, including both banks, investment banks, and private equity firms, venture capital firms, and that kind of thing. So our events are really the key vehicle for law firms and all participants of this ecosystem to come together. Probably the most popular aspect of our events is our one-to-one meeting system. So at any one of our events, and we have several depending on what sector we're focusing on. So we have an IP event. Our America event is more general. It includes IP, but also corporate and litigation. We have an Africa-focused event, and we have a couple of other events too. Again, you can get in touch with me for further information about those. But something that's common to all of them is this this one-to-one networking platform where ahead of time you can see who else is attending, try and schedule meetings for prospective clients or prospective service providers, and likewise people can try and schedule interviews, schedule meetings with you. And these are these aren't really kind of speed dates. These are actually, you've got half an hour. You can properly make a human connection and a professional connection in that time, where you can kind of set out your stall and pitch yourself to your client, or a service provider can pitch something to you as a law firm and save you a lot of money if they're doing something particularly competitively. And so that's proven really popular. Our private equity event usually has around 1,000 people attending. And these are not just private equity firms and investors, general partners and limited partners, but also law firms, occasionally venture capitalists, and people from kind of across that ecosystem. So that's, I'd say, the key thing that the key way that we really add value, and the thing that people keep coming back for. The other thing I would say in terms of adding value, which is related really, is the fact that you can, our research and our intelligence reports are by sector. So unlike certain other directories, for example, which go by region, so they'll have a kind of USA guide or a EMEA guide or a UK guide, we have global guides that focus on a specific area of practice and an ecosystem. So like I mentioned, we've got IP, we've got litigation arbitration, and we've got transactions, deals, finance, tax, that kind of thing. And so the advantage of that is that you, in one booklet, you get a good sense of this ecosystem globally, and also not just law firms, not just banks, but also the whole package for a country. And that has again proven popular. Whenever we're at international events, ones that we don't organize but we do attend, these guides prove very popular. And I'd like to think it's not just lawyers and investors liking to see their names in print. It's also a kind of, this is a useful place for me to get my information, my market intelligence about, I'm a law firm, I need a consulting firm for expert witness testimony. I can go to Leaders League, I can see who's ranked, and I know that their rankings are good because I look at my rankings, and yeah, these rankings seem accurate. So those are two ways that we like to think that we add value.
And just to kind of touch on that, with Let's Americas, we know that how important it is for law firms to have close relationship with service providers, especially as there's so much more emphasis nowadays on tech research data. So while we don't perform that in-house, it's part of our goal to connect our clients with the right service providers, help them stay in touch with the right tech providers, data providers, analytics providers. We recognize how important that is. So we'll do all the research, we'll connect everyone with the right people as needed. Are there other questions, Arjun?
I don't think there are any other questions. What I will do now is unmute or invite everyone to unmute themselves. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to shout, and we'd be happy to answer them. So I'll just give us 30 seconds to a minute if anyone wants to think about it.
Don't be shy.
I think people are shy.
Maybe it's just because we were so comprehensive.
Yeah.
I mean, from having worked in legal media for so many years, I'm shocked that there are no questions, because of course, if anyone has any later, you can contact us at any time.
Yes, of course.
But no one, nothing. Someone from Let's, I don't know.
So, Mr. Sajip?
Yes, hello.
Hello, so I'm William. So just I have a question. I would like to know if you at Leaders League are intending to make improvement or some news by 2021, or are you intending to make the same way to submit all the forms?
So you're asking if we're going to make any changes between now and next year for our submissions and for our research process?
Yeah.
Sure, good question. I'm just going to mute everyone again. Okay, so thank you for your question. What we did actually want to happen this year, but which hasn't happened because of the pandemic and because of all the chaos that's ensued, is improve our website. Our website is a little on the old side. It's got a lot of great content, but it could be organized a bit better. There could be more transparency about schedules, methodology, and that kind of thing. And so that is something that we hope to bring in the new year, somewhere where you can basically, you know what the upcoming deadlines are, you know who to contact, you know how to get your submission forms in, and that kind of thing. We've actually already been improving some of our processes since I and a couple of other people from other directories and other backgrounds joined. We, for example, place a lot more emphasis on written submissions than we used to, and we try to give law firms a bit more of a say. We started from a very good database of client contacts built up from I mean, our company was founded in the 90s, I think. It's quite old now, but it started as a French company. As it became more international, it accrued more and more contacts in the general counsel world. And so that's where a lot of our research started from. But more recently, we've become really very keen to give law firms, consulting firms, banks, all these different players a bigger say in and bigger input in the rankings. And so our submission process has become a lot more formalized. We have our own bespoke submission forms that we invite firms to submit to us. And so that's been one notable improvement since I joined the company. As for other things, we're always looking to improve it in any ways. And if anyone has any feedback on either our processes or our website or anything, we're always open and receptive to feedback. So get in touch if there's anything you'd like to say.
So thank you. For now, it works. So it's all clear.
Okay.
Arjun, I have a question.
Sure.
How is Leaders League adapting to general data protection law?
It's a good question. So, like I said, we have been very careful with all the information that we've been entrusted. A lot of it is very sensitive, and I think proof that we're trusted is the inroads that one example of proof that we're trustworthy and trusted by legal markets is the inroads that we've made in the litigation funding space. Now, as some of you may know, litigation funders deal with very, very sensitive clients, very, very sensitive bits of information. They're not really keen to spread that information or to make it known who they're backing in a particular case. And yet, over time, they've become very receptive to us, asking for their information, and they trust us. They trust that we're not going to breach that in any way. We don't have a kind of big database of confidential information that could spill out. All the information that we receive is processed and viewed entirely and exclusively by our research team, and secured safely. And our content management system is I know it to be secure. And so far there have been no complaints about confidentiality or breaches of trust when it comes to revealing sensitive data. So yes, it's something that we took we took seriously even before the GDPR came in, and it's something that we continue to take seriously.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Otherwise, last chance. But otherwise, you can email us, call us, LinkedIn us anytime. Yes. Trust me. Okay, I think that's everything. So thank you everyone very much for attending. It's been great to have so many people here, and I hope that the ground that we covered was interesting. I put in the chat that link that didn't work. So hopefully if you click on the chat button, you can see and scroll up a bit, you'll see the interview with me that Let's America did, that Alexandra did. You can find out some of the do's and don'ts of submitting, and hopefully that'll be a useful addition to this presentation. So thank you everyone for attending. Alexandra, any last words? Thank you all so much. Really, it was so great to see everybody, and I really hope we'll all see each other again soon.